Well, there you can see protests that have been conducted in Balasore, and this is over the Odisha student death. Do remember the Odisha student who battled for her life for 3 days before she died. This was after complaints that were made against her own professor, and due to inaction, there were protests that were held at the college itself. But because of inaction, that was, the reason for the protest is the action that the girl took upon herself. She did suffer 90 to 95% burn injuries when she self-immolated herself. And now you can see that protests are being conducted after the death, after she battled for her life for 3 days. And that was because of the inaction that was taken. Do remember that after she had filed a complaint on the 1st of July, there was action that was promised to the complainant that within 7 days there would be action that would be taken. But no action was taken, and which is why on the 12th of July, when a protest was being held, and that is when the girl went and self-immolated herself. She suffered from over 90% burns, and eventually, after fighting for her life for 3 days in the hospital at the AIIMS in Bhubaneswar, she ended up losing her life. There was a friend who also tried to help her at the time and also suffered 70% burn injuries at the time. But visuals on your screen, live visuals coming to you from Balasore and that protest that is taking place. Saurabh joining us to get us the very latest. Saurabh, of course, people up in arms because of the inaction, and perhaps, highlighting that, the need for reforms is really literally the need of the hour.
This is a case that's really shocked entire Odisha, and nationally people have been shocked by the horrific turn of events in this. And, the top constitutional functionaries have met the family, the President of India, and all of that has happened. But, this is something that has now become a rallying point in Odisha over the issue of women's safety, because in this case the victim had complained. The allegation is that her complaints were ignored, she was victimized, and that's something that's led to the horrific self-immolation. So the opposition BJD is protesting, and these are dramatic visuals that are coming in from Bhubaneswar, water cannons being used against the protesters. And what we've been reporting also in the last few months, we've reported on several cases out of Odisha. And it's not just Bhubaneswar or Balasore, but other districts as well. And in this case, though, the turn of events, the self-immolation, is something that's really drawn people's attention to an issue that's really rocking state politics as well. But beyond the politics, it's also about women's safety, something that has been questioned in the last few months. And now you see the BJD, the opposition BJD. In fact, Naveen Patnaik has been speaking on this, the BJD chief. In fact, he was in Mumbai for surgery, but he's returned, and he's been speaking on it as well, and other opposition parties, for example, the Congress as well, which is in opposition in Odisha. So these two parties have been really raising this issue and putting the government on the mat over this horrific incident that's emerged from Balasore in Odisha, and now, of course, protests in the state capital of Bhubaneswar, where these protests have broken out. Dramatic visuals there of BJD, workers. You can see those symbols, the Shankh symbol, which is the symbol of the BJD amongst those protesters, and you can see those water cannons also now in these pictures. So the protests, really taking place over this really shocking case, the unfortunate death of a young woman over, harassment at the hands of, her superiors, and then, of course, the complaints being ignored, and later the victim being, victimized. So that's what you see. Also, the protests over that on your screens, the water cannons that have been fired on the protesters from the Biju Janata Dal, led by Naveen Patnaik. The Congress also has been protesting in Odisha, but of course these are protests that are now really drawing national attention. And Naveen Patnaik has been also talking about this on social media as well. He's been posting on it on social media, and and expressing concern over what's been happening in Odisha. In fact, he's, if I can also read from his post on X, he said, I'm deeply saddened and heartbroken to learn about the demise of the student who was undergoing treatment at AIIMS, and then, of course, talking about the family. And it's even more disturbing to think how a failed system can take someone's life. And that's really the focus. This lady had complained that, that she was harassed, and then, but instead she did not get support. She said Naveen Patnaik in fact says the result of a system that remains silent instead of helping, struggling for justice, the girl ultimately closed her eyes. So now, of course, the political parties, especially the opposition, the Biju Janata Dal and the Congress party, are out on the streets. This has become the main political headline out of Odisha over the last few days. And, to seek justice, of course, this woman had reached out to the higher education minister. She also met an MP. This is all Naveen Patnaik, on post. And, of course, he's asking for courage for the family members. But you can see these dramatic visuals of water cannons being fired at the protesters as these protests break out in Odisha's capital of Bhubaneswar. The opposition parties really questioning the government. The government, of course, also has been supportive towards the family, in terms of ministers reaching out. Not just the government and the opposition, but even the President of India. So
Right,
obviously,
of course,
everybody's reached out. It's a horrific case, and